Episode 109. Has the world gone crazy? Are you for real? Simon said as everyone stood up from their seats. Some of them walked to the gate and looked at the car. It's really a Ferrari, Walter confirmed as the blue car pulled up to the gate. Could it be that what he said is true? Someone asked. Is this really a Ferrari? Is he really from a rich family? Said another aunt. The family members were shocked and confused. Then Yvonne said loudly to everyone, Stop being idiots, this is Brian's Ferrari. They all finally understood and felt even more respect for Brian. One of them said, Like I said, it can't be this kid's car, he's just making it up. How would someone like him ever buy a Ferrari? Another agreed, Yvonne's boyfriend is awesome. He's only in his 20s and he's already driving a Ferrari. That's right, he's handsome, knowledgeable, and rich. Our family will really benefit from him marrying Yvonne, said his wife. Everyone, this is my Ferrari. Would you like to come and take a look? Brian politely asked Yvonne's family. Margaret, Yvonne, Walter, and Elizabeth walked together out of the fancy iron gate and over to the car. Brian's driver got out of the car and handed the key to him. I ordered this car a year ago and it was delivered 6 months ago. I paid a total of $500,000. During the manufacturing process, I made a lot of specific requests, resulting in the car you see before you. I've asked Ferrari about my car, and they told me that because of its specifications, it's in the top 30% of the vehicles sold by the entire Ferrari company. Brian stood up and presented his beloved car to Margaret and the others. Then he waved the key in his hand and said, I'll show you now. Brian pressed the key and watched in satisfaction as the two sides of the car slowly rose. At the same time, the roof and the rear door also slowly lifted. After what seemed like a scene from a science fiction movie, the roof was hidden in the back, and the two sides of the doors remained in the air like wings. The sapphire blue Ferrari was extremely beautiful. It emanated a feeling of luxury and futuristic technology, causing all of the surrounding family members to gasp in admiration. Mr. Phillips, didn't you want to try it out? Please go ahead. Brian gestured to Walter. No, he replied. You youngsters are much better drivers. I was just spouting nonsense. He was itching to have a go, but he was also afraid of the consequences if he accidentally damaged it. Yvonne, let Brian take you for a drive around Purple Dawn Lake, he continued, as he pushed his daughter toward the car. Great idea. Go on, Yvonne, get in the car, Elizabeth said, feeling excited for her daughter. Yvonne, let's go. Why aren't you getting in the car? Asked Brian. Yvonne smiled sweetly and climbed in. She didn't usually get to spend much time alone with Brian, and this was her first time sitting in a Ferrari, so she was very excited. Brian was about to get into his car when he caught a glimpse of Kelly and Alex still sitting at the table in the courtyard. He called out to Alex, Hey buddy, I'm going to take a spin around Purple Dawn Lake. I hope I'll get to see your $2 million Ferrari when I get back. With a parting wave to Margaret, Brian drove the Ferrari toward the lake. Watching the car drive away with 4 flames coming out of the exhaust cylinders, everyone was impressed. When they returned to the courtyard, they once again began to mock and ridicule Alex. They said that Brian was the perfect boyfriend, while he was just a clown with a big mouth. Simon stared at him and said to Margaret, Grandma, how about I get someone to kick this kid out here already? Margaret turned to Kelly and said sarcastically, Didn't he say that someone was sending him a Ferrari worth $2 million? How can we afford to offend such a wealthy and noble person? The others were talking about how shameless Alex was, yelling at him from time to time and trying to get him to leave while praising Brian. Alex, maybe you should just leave, Kelly whispered to him. She believed that he had made up the story about his new car because he was angry. I'm not lying. Someone will bring me the car, he replied with a bland expression. Kelly sighed softly and was quiet. Sharon glared at Alex and said, Yes, of course we believe that someone's going to send you a luxury Ferrari. Don't you think you've embarrassed Kelly enough for one day? Why don't you shut up or leave? Half an hour later, more headlights appeared. Kelly's uncle stood up from his seat and looked at the door. he saw a big vehicle with flashing blue and white lights. "It looks like an armored security vehicle," he told the others. "Really?" someone replied. "This truck is huge, much larger than the security vehicles at the bank." Everyone was wondering what a security vehicle was doing there. The Purple Dawn Lake was a long way from the city, and the armored vehicles were usually used to carry money and other things of extreme value within the city. They were all thinking, "It's so remote here, and it's not a major road. Strange, an armored truck should show up here." What surprised them even more was that the security vehicle was heading directly toward their villa. When it stopped in front of the iron gate, 2 heavily armed men jumped down from the cab. In their hands, they were holding machine guns. They stood on either side of the truck, guarding it. Watching from the courtyard, the Phillips family were terrified. They thought that someone in the family must have done something criminal. As the head of the family, Margaret opened the iron gate and walked out. The rest of the family hid behind her, watching the men. Then everyone noticed a black Fiat pulling up behind the security truck. The Fiat stopped and the doors opened. 2 men and a woman stepped out and walked quickly toward the courtyard. "What's going on?" everyone wondered. Judging from their appearances, these are clearly respectable people. Are they here to visit the family? "Hello, may I ask who you are?" Margaret quickly went up to greet them, but she didn't recognize any of them. She asked them, "Is this security vehicle something to do with you?" "Hello," said one of the men as he shook hands with Margaret. He didn't introduce himself or his companions or pay her much attention. He was clearly looking for someone in the crowd. Family members looked at each other confused. "Mr. Sharp, it's an honor to meet you. Hello," Simon said as he stepped forward. He often walked around the New York Auto Exhibition Center, and he recognized the manager, Harold Sharp. He extended his hand toward Harold, who shook it distractedly, but he still seemed to be searching the crowd. "Grandma, this is Mr. Sharp. He's the manager of New York Auto Exhibition Center," Simon explained to Margaret. 80% of New York's luxury cars are sold by Harold Sharp. In the upper echelons of New York society, he's definitely one of the people that everyone wants to get to know. Everyone was interested in meeting Mr. Sharp, but none of them dared to disturb him, as it was clear from his sharp gaze that he was searching for someone. The woman who accompanied Harold whispered something to him. "Wait a moment," he said to his companions. Then he looked at the family and said loudly, "Mr. Ambrose, are you here?" Margaret said to him, "Mr. Ambrose? Mr. Sharp, you're mistaken. This is a family gathering of the Phillips family. There's no one here called Mr. Ambrose." Everyone nodded in agreement. They didn't even think about Alex, because he could clearly not have any involvement with anyone as impressive as these strangers. The family members shut the iron gate so that Mr. Sharp couldn't see into the courtyard. He shouted twice, but no one responded. "Strange, I'll check that this is definitely the correct address," he said as he took out his phone and pressed the call button. He put the phone to his ear, looking a little anxious. His companions understood that he was calling Mr. Ambrose and remained silent. As he waited, he heard the sound of a phone's ringtone coming from the garden. He was surprised as he recognized it as a cheap model. The family members in the courtyard heard Alex's phone ringing and cursed him again. They didn't for a moment think it was Mr. Sharp calling him. However, Mr. Sharp and his companions were happy when they heard the phone ringing, and they followed the sound to the courtyard. Yvonne's family was astonished as they realized what was happening. They followed the strangers into the courtyard. Harold had an expression of pure joy when he recognized Alex sitting at the table. When he had met him at the New York Auto Exhibition Center, and Alex had transferred over $1 million to the car shop's account, he had made a conscious effort to etch Alex's appearance into his mind so that he would recognize him in the future. "Mr. Ambrose," he said as he quickly walked over to Alex. His companions followed. Surprised, Kelly helped Alex stand up, and they both turned around. When the family members looked at Alex again, understanding slowly started to dawn on them. they realized that he wasn't the lowlife that they thought he was. "Hello, Mr. Ambrose." Mr. Sharp smiled ingratiatingly as he held Alex's hand with both of his own. He introduced him to one of his companions. "This is Mr. Catulo, the president of the Ferrari company. He's come to America specifically to meet you." "Hello," Alex said as he looked at the man. Catulo took the initiative to reach out, and they shook hands. He said something in Italian with a smile on his face. Alex assumed that he was thanking him for his trust in Ferrari and expressing his desire to have the opportunity to serve him again. Watching the scene, almost everyone in the Phillips family was shocked. They were dumbstruck as what they were seeing went completely against their knowledge of Alex. They were all thinking, is Alex really the Mr. Ambrose that this gentleman is looking for? Did this loser really buy a Ferrari? And has Ferrari's CEO really come to America personally to deliver a car for him? Are we crazy, or is that the world has gone crazy? Kelly was also extremely shocked. She looked at Alex with her eyes wide open and her mind went blank. She suddenly felt that she didn't know him at all. The true Alex was a mystery to her. "You're too kind." Alex smiled humbly and nodded toward Mr. Catulo. Then he looked at Harold and asked, "Have you brought my car?" "It's here. It's right outside. Mr. Ambrose, please," Harold replied as gestured toward the gate. The family all stepped back to make way for Alex to walk past them toward the gate.